Hey VC, hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back. As you can see by the title, this is a contest response to Not Enough Records, Danny. You can also see him in a new room. This is the spare room, bit of change of scenery. It's just ticked over into autumn now and it's pissing it down, raining, windy, grey, so you may hear some ambient rain sounds in the background to relax you while I talk. Yeah, so this is, please check out if you don't know this guy called Danny. I think he's based in LA. I stumbled upon his channel probably about 3 weeks ago now, and he's been making videos for a couple of months at least, showing really interesting stuff, bits of jazz, bits of folk. I know he's really into sort of like Irish folk and Scottish folk and like traditional trad music, stuff like that. Yeah, like overall a pretty diverse range, but yeah, a really interesting channel. I really like what he shows and what he talks about. And the first video I saw of his was a jazz hall he got, and it had stuff like Anthony Braxton and Ensemble of Chicago, stuff like that. And I think for him, he said it was his first time hearing that sort of stuff, and the way he described that reminded me of when I first heard that stuff, and it completely blew me away because I didn't know anything. I had no reference point of what that was. You know, like the first time you hear Anthony Braxton, it's just, and he captured that feeling so well in his video. It was really inspiring. And I remember when I made a very similar video a couple of years ago. Teddy from Eat Sleep Vinyl left me a very similar comment saying, your passion and your excitement and the way you're describing what you heard for the first time, you know, I wish I could hear it like that for the first time, you know. So that was a really nice connection there. But yeah, I really enjoyed that video and the way you talked about your emotions and the way you were thinking about the music as you were hearing it, because it was very tough, you know, and you got some amazing scores too. So yeah, please check out his channel. He's called Not Enough Records, which is a great title. I'm surprised it hasn't been taken already by someone else. But yeah, Danny I think he's on 130 subs now, but he did a contest for 100 subs called Lost in the Liner Notes, which is a really interesting topic because I personally feel really guilty about liner notes, and I don't read as much as I should do. I'll look at the artwork and stare at it for hours, but I don't sit and read liner notes. So I've picked things that maybe aren't necessarily the words and what they say and what they tell you, but there's interesting things sort of related to liner notes. Maybe because I'm a graphic designer, I like visual things. Maybe they're displayed in different ways, or they're more graphics that explain or add more to the album or tell the story of the band rather than written in paragraphs, sort of thing. So I picked a stack of things. We'll get into them. This is the front cover of Faust, the German krautrock band. This is called the Faust Tapes. This is the front cover, and it's basically, there's not specifically liner notes, but the back is just this sort of trippy thing here. It's just reviews of live gigs that they played at the time. So they don't specifically talk about the bands, but they just, yeah, it's just, what a cover. That's all it is. It's just plain old printed text. A lot to read. I just thought that was quite a little interesting thing there. Yeah, the Faust Tapes. There you go. Kind of a cool one. I mean, the things, jazz is another obvious one because especially the Blue Note stuff is written so well on the back. You know, this is a Miles Davis on Prestige, but what I like about reading these ones are, because they're written at the time, like, you know, there's no hint of the Miles we know today and what Miles became. It's just really interesting to read about Miles at the current time of recording this, you know, with the foresight that we know now and what he went on to do and how important he went on to be. Yeah, I don't know, just the way it's written in that sort of like 60s way is always really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I always find the early jazz ones really interesting from that point of view, really. There's another later Lee Morgan record. This has a really nice, I remember reading this when I was listening to the record for the first time properly. Has a nice little story. That's the other thing. Some of the jazz ones talk about the tracks individually and they explain them and how the players work together, where some of them are written about an artist in more like a biography or a personal experience with the artist. So I'll read you out the paragraph that's on the back of the Gigolo here. This is written by a guy called Nat Hendoff. I don't know who he is, but he wrote, with certain musicians I associate certain striking events. Oh, sorry about that. I'll start again, shall I? With certain musicians I associate certain striking events. Sarah Vaughan scat singing at 3 in the morning at Minton's years ago. Sonny Stitt one night in a club long since disappeared, suddenly stunning the audience, stilling all conversation, with a solo that literally turned heads. And Lee Morgan, not yet 20 at the time, at Birdland in the late 1950s. He was in Dizzy Gillespie's big band, and although I'd heard about Lee and friends from Philadelphia, I never heard him play. The band was into A Night in Tunisia, and the arrangement had a long break, a cadenza really, in which Dizzy usually exploded into a musical equivalent of the Aurora Borealis. But that night, the thin, jaunty kid from Philadelphia took over that challenge, and in front of Dizzy himself, Lee split the sky. In a manner of speaking, of course. But the impact was such that you knew something that happened you never forget. So that's just a nice little story that sets a scene, or is like a little musical tidbit or a little story, which is quite nice to read about that. Got a few more to get through here. We got some post-punk things. No, actually we haven't. I'll do one more jazz related now. This one isn't specifically the liner notes, but it's part and parcel of coming with a record is these inner sleeves. Now, yeah, they're definitely not liner notes, but I love these Atlantic inner sleeves here, especially the full color ones, showing all the other labels coming up. The Atlantic ones and the Atco ones I think are especially cool. Actually, here we go. Some one here showing you that. As a designer, I love looking at these while I listen to the record too, which is a really strange thing to do. But even just looking at stylistically the relationships, like you can see some of these covers here have a similar design aesthetic to them, and on the back, whether they're part of series or whatever. But yeah, I picked this one out because I know that you recently picked up this record in your jazz video, and mine too. I think yours is a promo copy. I've seen so many people show this, and it's always a promo copy for whatever reason. So another one, not specifically liner notes, but this is The Wonderful and Frightening World of the Fall. Now, on the back, we've got the track listings as you would normally have them, but Marquis Smith has written a little line or a short description about each song that maybe hints about of what the song is about, or words that just sound over the top, a bit pretentious, but kind of cool. Now, just for example, there's a track called Steven's Song, which is track 7, and the description written underneath which is just here, Vatican distort into operatic nightmare. That's the description of the song. There's a track called Disney's Dream Debased, and the tagline is, his bank account, terminal 1956, $6,000. So they're just little, like, almost like short lines of like poetry or something, or like a little statement that says something or makes you imagine something. One track called 2x4, the word is, into our midst came fiend, into our midst came friend, stomachs gnawed at the track of fame, debuted on KGB pantomime TV show one Friday, Bo. So it's kind of like weird, short, jazzy poetry words, or packing lots of descriptive words into a short sentence. I think that's really cool. And it's almost like the way Marky Smith does sing in a song. So he just has these really descriptive words that sort of form a image in your mind. Couple more here. This is a New Zealand record. It's a sort of very important New Zealand record, but I won't go into that because that's not really important. Now, this record has, people think it's a Chills record, but it's actually by 4 artists. So it's by the Chills, the Verlaines. So they've printed 4 front covers basically across the gatefold. You've got the Sneaky Feelings, and you've got the Stones. So instead of having an order, each side has their own front cover basically. And depending on which bands you liked, the spine here, it's also written on the inside of the spine, so you could fold it out that way, or fold it out that way. But yeah, there's not many liner notes, but each artist's page has an aesthetic that is so of that band. You know, you can tell this is a lot more punk. These guys are probably a bit more indie pop. Like, you get what I mean? Like, it's really interesting, and I really like the idea of being able to flip the record inside out depending on what you want to have on the front. But yeah, it's not specifically liner notes, but it's kind of cool that the band's got to design their own label depending on who they were. You know, so in a way, that kind of does add an insight to the music. You know, it's part of the package. I mean, that's barely scraping liner notes, but it was something cool I wanted to show. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm really into graphic design, so I love these. I love graphics, and this is a punk record from New Zealand. This is the back cover, and the note. There's not many liner notes at all. There's a little bit here talking about where it was recorded, but the main story is this Snakes and Ladders game here that you can play, and it's all about the story of the band and how they moved forward and where they got to. Number 27, band reaches puberty. If you move up to 36, become a cult band or fade into obscurity. As you get higher up, number 85, eventually recruits 2 more members. Number 6 at the bottom here, drugs. Not a bad thing. And if you take drugs, you actually get to step up to 16. So this is a cool. I spent a long time reading this when I was listening to the music, just because and it gives you a feel for the band and what they do, and the surroundings, you know, and they recorded that. That's Who Killed Killer Mustard by the Board Games. I'm going to show this in another video and talk about it properly, but it's just, yeah, for me, the liner notes can act as a way of giving you more of the feel of the band, or maybe more of a feel of the music. It doesn't necessarily have to be written down in, you know. So that's my interpretation of it. I know when you think of liner notes, you think of written in a paragraph, but that's just some cool little ways of, for me, telling me more about the band aside from the music. So there we go. Yeah, that went for a while. Sorry about that. That was my contest entry. Please check out Danny's channel. It's really good. I mean that. I really enjoy his channel. I've actually got to go back through and check out the earlier ones because I sort of discovered one and I've been working my way back slowly through them all. But yeah, please keep it up, Danny. I really enjoy them. I just watched your Gaining LPs in a Diet video. And you showed a Marlon Williams record, which is really cool. But yeah, that's all really. Thank you guys. I will see you all soon in the future.